Hello, everybody. This is a video about Saturn moving into the sign of Aries. This takes place, it begins, it embarks for about 2.5 years. It starts on February 13th, 2026. Now, there's two reasons why this is important, and one of them is because of the forthcoming conjunction. So we just had Neptune go into Aries. There's a video I did on that earlier. Now we have Saturn going into Aries. And then on the 20th, we're going to have them in a conjunction, which is the super, 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 super duper once in 5,000 years thing. What's happening today, Saturn into Aries, is actually something that happens every, roughly 30 years, which is Saturn's orbital is 29.5 years. So it spends roughly 2.5 to 3 years in each sign. That's kind of less impressive given all the other stuff that's happening this year. Last year, Pluto went into Aquarius. That was a huge deal. Pluto's orbit is, I forget, I think it's 190 some years. I'm sorry, I do know it. I just don't have it off the top of my head. And then Neptune's is 165. Uranus is 84 years. So all those are the transpersonal planets. That is what's signaling the major shifts that we're experiencing. Saturn and Jupiter hold a unique space, and I want to talk about that before we get into Saturn and Aries, because Saturn and Jupiter are they're not the personal planets. The personal planets are the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. You know, Saturn and Jupiter, the space is often called the transpersonal planets, and transpersonal is different than personal because it's bridging this. If the personal planets are the things that we can really fundamentally see in our lives, if Mercury retrograde, we know, we look at our phones and we can kind of put a thumbprint on something because it's very much more 3D oriented. And then Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus are often kind of hard for us to grasp because they're generational planets. We need to look at things from, as we're experiencing right now, we're going through this massive collective shift that is about something that hasn't been experienced by the generations that are here right now. In the middle of that are Jupiter and Saturn, which what's known as the transpersonal planets. And this is so cool that Saturn's coming online, because I think of these planets as the transpersonal is like a planet that affects us and shows us our effect on the collective. And it's able to do so if the personal planets are 3D, and the outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, are the subtle energy planets. Those are more like 5D. Jupiter and Saturn kind of straddle that middle land. And they can be kind of mysterious and hard for us to understand, but they also really do relate to our lives, our everyday lives. And so I wanted to kind of just let us think about this, that this is, Saturn's leaving the final degrees of Pisces, and I'll talk about that now. And it's stepping into this threshold in Aries. So it's a moment of closure. It's a karmic ending. It's a sacred beginning, but it's also something that is kind of really special for us at this point, because it's Saturn's coming online, I sense, to really help us ground down the process that is being asked, invited upon us for creating change and really creating the structures that will last. So Saturn is a karmic planet, right? Saturn is the great teacher. Saturn is the builder, the one who really invites us to walk our talk. Saturn's not only, karma, but it's boundaries, it's time, it's responsibility, it's discipline, but it's also devotion. And I want to really focus on this last point. Saturn is the slow work of making something real. That's the punchline. Saturn doesn't rush. And Saturn doesn't promise ease. So this is kind of a neat tone for us to consider right now, because, I think there's this hunger for change and for resolution. And Saturn is kind of saying okay, yes, something is afoot here. But it's, even though it's not easy, the profound thing that Saturn, and even though it's slow going, Saturn offers something that is a solid life, something that's enduring, something that has, in structural and energetic integrity. And I think we're also really coming to a visceral understanding that those things are important to us too, right? So when Saturn changes signs in general, we feel a shift in the collective curriculum. It's as if a new lesson is beginning. And so on the 13th and for the next 2.5 years, that lesson is about, excuse me, that lesson is about the Aries energy. But before we get to that, I want to touch on what we left because Saturn has been in Pisces since 2023. And Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. Pisces is a sign of spirit. Pisces is a sign of surrender and transcendence. And Pisces, as the final sign, invites us to really look at the lessons that we've learned, the wisdom that we've gleaned, and to use that wisdom. And so Saturn in Pisces has asked us to really build up our faith and to learn energetic boundaries and to create some kind of spiritual discipline. And since 2023, Saturn in Pisces, this is a time of pointing out where we're overworking, where we're overwhelming, where we're autopiloting and exhausting ourselves energetically. So it could be a sense of the energy of the lessons 2023 could be this sense of endings, letting go, but letting go of illusions, right? And that Neptune's going to get to that here in a few more days on the 20th. But as Saturn is leaving in the final degrees of Pisces, actually, as I'm recording this, that is the case. Those are the anaretic degrees. And those are kind of the sense that we can feel something closing, something dissolving, something finishing. And when Saturn enters into Aries on the 13th, there's going to be something viscerally different. Caveat that in my personal experience of astrology, it's never necessarily that we look at the exact time and date and we all just sit around and watch for that time. This energy is cuspy. By cuspy, I mean we already kind of likely are getting a couple glimpses in this week from the 8th to the 13th of Saturn and Aries. There might be a couple things, little seeds that have popped themselves up, just a couple. But it's gonna prepare us for what's coming and what the energy really is. So, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries is the spark. Aries is the beginning. Aries is about our identity. Aries is about courage and action and initiation. And also, I would offer here in this context, it's about the sacred will to exist. It's about why we're here also. So when Saturn is, entering into Aries, there's going to be some new types of lessons. And lessons doesn't mean that we've done something wrong. Lessons might just be downloads and insights and often things we've never conceived of before. So lesson can be an uplifting thing here. It's not you need to learn your lesson. It's like it's more like realization, I will say, or download. And the downloads about what? Downloads about how to begin. Downloads about how to lead, how to act, and how we embody courage with integrity. But it's interesting because Saturn in Aries, this isn't impulsive fire. Aries kind of it can be impulsive and aggressive, but Saturn's kind of reining it in a little bit, reining that shadow sign in, or helping us rein that shadow side in, because this is about, if Aries is fire, this is disciplined fire. This is the idea of forging something in the fire instead of just blowing it up. If you think about a blacksmith or somebody working with the magic of fire, if there's alchemy involved, and if you think of what the alchemists did, they distilled and brought things down and recreated, and it was a process that took time. So that's kind of where we're at, is we can feel something new, but Saturn is helping us to really want to dig in and put some roots down and not just have it all solved really quickly and put it in a box and get back to being comfortable. This is about something that we can't even really conceive of yet. So Saturn in Aries asks, what are we willing to commit to? What life, what life, what world are we ready to build? And, what does it mean to begin again? Not from ego, but from truth. So, Saturn in Aries is really potent medicine for right now because it's the courage to take the first step. And also the energy and the wherewithal to keep walking. And so, one of the phrases that keeps coming through with Saturn and Aries is beginning with integrity. Because Aries, some of the energy of Aries wants to leap, wants to rush, wants to get out of the gate, wants to move fast, wants the beginning now, wants the things happening now. But Saturn's really here to help us begin wisely. And I'm going to say it again, slow down. Be willing to move what the universe show us versus just muscling it and fighting it. There's magical energies afoot that we cannot conceive of, that humanity as a whole, maybe some people know about it, but likely definitely not the bulk of the collective. So we're talking about beginning in a way that can endure. And so, this is not the fire of burn it up and blow it out or burn out. This is the fire of devotion. This is the fire of creation. And I'm going to use that word again, this kind of like forging or alchemizing, working with the magic of fire versus just blowing it up. So, Saturn in Aries is teaching us about courage. Aries is courage, but Saturn is reminding us that courage is not loud. And that picks up on a theme that I was talking about with Neptune in Aries, which is about the quiet majority, the quiet understanding and the collective that's rippling through, that doesn't even have words yet. The quiet wisdom of humanity that's not necessarily coming to be something that we can put a name to yet, because it's new and it potentially involves all of us if we want to go with it. But this is about steady courage. This is about sustainable courage. And this is about aligned courage. So the image I'm getting is, when you're going with the flow and the doors open and the things come together, and it's just something that is above and beyond this linear 3D hack away at it and muscle it down and wrestle it to the ground and get it done no matter what. This is working with the flows of energy. So around the time of the 13th and even into the weeks beyond it, because we're in this larger eclipse season, the next day after the 13th, we have the new moon solar eclipse. And then 2 weeks later, we have the lunar eclipse. So we're in this kind of multi-week cycle of things happening. And we also have the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune on the 20th. But this energy of Saturn and Aries, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit, I hope I'm not too distracting. I really want to remind us there's so much going on in February and March, and they're all really rare. And so I'm doing separate videos on them to maybe help us digest them as we're ready. Saturn and Aries asks us, what are we beginning? What am I beginning? And not just what am I beginning, but what am I beginning from truth, with courage and integrity? So the beginning is itself something for us to think about, the tone. It's like this type of beginning. Saturn is really inviting us to self-reflect and to set the wise tone. What wisdom did we glean from that stay in Pisces since 2023? What have we let go of? What are we still really realizing it's time to release? And then if we've just been through that whole zodiac cycle, then of course we're not just going to try to create something as fast as possible. We're going to try to create something. And if we're truly creating something that is, according to Pluto and Aquarius, circular power versus top down power, it's a creation that involves the tapestry of every soul weaving itself in, if it so chooses, to what we're creating. That's something fairly complex that we likely generational. These are generational shifts. The outer planets are generational, right? Something that we can't even conceive of. Saturn and Jupiter are here to kind of help us put words to it, help us lay the foundation. So that means that let's, of course, it's going to take some time. And I keep getting this sense of, this is an exciting time. It's a time for us to dream and to pursue the light, uplifting energies, and to speak our truth, and to be a part of this beautiful collective and this beautiful world, and to realize that all beings matter, and all beings, not just the ones we like. Everybody's playing a role here. And even sometimes, the things that we don't want to look at, we don't need to look at. But to maybe even, instead of offer them disdain, offer them appreciation for the lessons and the changes that they are bringing about. It may be even a quicker way than we would have wanted. So Saturn is really asking us to embody the vision and to live that dream, and to do so with integrity. So the themes here are, leadership, but leadership with accountability, restructuring of power, courage within conflict, new beginnings that, of course, they require discipline. Of course, they take some time. Of course, we want them to have integrity. And also integrity in our actions, integrity in all of the vibrations that we offer. Not just what we are doing publicly, what we're doing privately, what we're doing internally, whether we know it or not. If there's something still running, it might be coming to light around now. And so the real idea is learning to initiate without force, because force is likely a little bit aggressive right now. And if Aries is the sign of self, Saturn is bringing responsibility to the self. And so, I've talked a lot about this idea that we create our own reality, and that our energy is what everything we send out today is creating tomorrow, right? So this isn't, but right now what's happening with all the planets is this isn't just individual. This is the collective maturation of our collective identity. Do you see the difference there? And so this is a really nice time. And I feel like I'll bring this to a close here in just a moment. It's a really nice time for us to realize that, yes, we are the change. We are the microcosm to the macrocosm. But if everything's going to change, and we're seeking this massive rebirth of truth and wisdom and interconnection and responsibility and integrity, and it needs to be collective, yeah, we can give it a little bit of a buffer of time. I am not saying to roll over. That's not what this is saying. And it's not saying to look the other way, because it's just going to take some time. It's being present in it and really understanding the deep wisdom that we're living in times of tremendous change, and to find peace and grace with being in the process of it. And before I close, I want to offer just one more thing. If you happen to know where Aries is in your birth chart, this is a really good time to look at what house Aries is in your birth chart. And it's something I'm offering two free Saturdays in sync with the eclipses of the Lunar Herbal Alchemy Circle, where I like to go over how these events affect us personally, and how we can see how Saturn and Aries affects us personally, how we can learn to look at our chart and understand how these transits, what areas of life, what themes, how are they affecting us uniquely. So if you're not already on my email list, that's a quick little plug to get on my email list, because that's how I send the invites out. And I'll just close, inviting you to maybe just close your eyes for a minute or two. Take a deep breath in. Breathe in through your nose and release through your mouth. And just focus on your breath. And maybe let these words wash over you and through you and see what resonates most for you. And just notice that. Notice as I'm speaking, and I'll speak for just 2 minutes, if some what themes are really things that are relevant to you. Saturn in Aries is not about rushing forward. It's about a sacred beginning. Just easy breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. It's a karmic closing as well as a courageous initiation. So if you feel something shifting, if you feel the gravity of the threshold that we're in, know that this is a moment of alignment. It's a moment of integrity. It's a moment to potentially simply take one single step forward. Not a million steps, but one step, and to make that step with integrity. The dream has been activated within the collective. And now with Saturn and Aries, the structure is going to begin to arrive. There are some seeds that have been planted. There are more seeds that will continue to be planted as this energy is coursing through the collective. So just maybe as we close, put one or both hands over your heart and thank yourself for being present on this planet. I notice if there's any seed that you want to plant, but also maybe take a moment to take a breath as you plant the seed, to do so with integrity and without acting out of fear and needing to rush, to do so trusting the unfolding. I hope you find this helpful. I'll put a link in the notes for you to join my email list in case you want to hop into those free eclipse sessions. Cheers to Saturn and Aries. I will have one more video in this triple series, and that's for the Neptune conjunction coming up. All right, guys. Bright blessings. Tons of love.